So the last part of this process is making sure you have all of your different references. And here I have my title reference bubbles, I have my detail reference bubbles, but I don't have my sectional reference bubbles. So let's take a look at what that exactly means. So my sectional reference bubble, and you've had this from previous projects that we've worked on. I'm just going to be using this. I'm copying one that I already have, and then I'm going to modify. That's always an easier way than creating something new each time. So the reference bubble or the sectional reference bubble refers to what do we see and where do we see it. Let's say, for instance, this view here. I see the end cuts of the actual lintel and the side of the ceiling joist. So where does that apply here? So where are my lintels? Well, these are my lintels. I see the end cuts of my lintels and the sides of my ceiling joists. Okay, so this reference bubble must go into this location because that's what it's actually identifying. And this, when we're taking a look at the plan view, I'll be referencing that in a minute, will identify where it is on the plan. So the first thing I'm going to do is just click on a location, and then I'll take that and mirror it. Let me take this information. And this is all in paper space. This is not in model space. I want to erase the source in this particular case. And then I want to move this reference to a location where it's not going to interfere with anything. So, oops, I missed the top of the arrow. So move, and I could select previous or P and enter to do that, but I'm just going to do it this way. And I want to place it somewhere where it makes sense. Seems to be a good location right here because it's not encroaching on any of the text information. It doesn't matter where along here you actually place that. Now, where does this actual section reference apply? Well, let's take a look at this. This is what I was referring to right here. Notice that I see the two ends of the lintel. So that cuts through the lintel, and I would see the two ends. So it's this drawing here, 3L3. So I will change all of this information. And because I mirrored it, some of this information has been reversed. So I'll change this to 3. And I'll change this to L3. And I'll move it in position now. And I'm going to eyeball that. And for this first instance, this is okay because once I've got one in the right direction, I can copy and paste that. And now when I edit it, it'll be in exactly the same location. So when someone looks at this top plan view, they'll see this reference 3L3, and this is a sectional reference. So now when they go to 3L3, that's what they're going to see. Okay, let's make sure that makes sense. So here I have a post which has its own saddle that supports the wooden post above. Which one of these configurations is it? Well, it's this one right here. So I'm cutting it at the right location so that I should be able to see this on the left side and see this situation or scenario on the right side. Okay, everything makes sense. I can move forward from there. What about this one here? This is 4L3, and if we take a look at this time on 4L3, what's the different information that's here? Well, the difference between 4L3 and 3L3 is that I'm seeing the ends this time of the ceiling joist and the side view of the actual lintel. So there's my lintel. So I want to see the side view of the lintel and the ends of my ceiling joist. Okay, this goes in the direction that's perpendicular to that one. I'm going to use the same one up here. I'm going to copy this one up here because it's already more or less oriented into the right direction. There we go. And then I will rotate this. And that rotation will occur in a negative 90-degree angle. Now, when I rotated that, see what rotated here as well? Okay, so I've got to rotate this information about its center, the center of the actual circle. So I'll go to the center option, click on the edge of the circle, that locates the center. And this time I'm going 90 degrees in a counterclockwise fashion. There we go. And that one is 4L3. So type in 4. type in L3. And I'm just going to move it a bit here so it's closer to that. There we go. And that gives me plenty of room on the drawing to be able to read the notes to make sure it doesn't interfere with any of that critical data. So what else do I have here as a reference? See detail 1L4. So let me take a look at my L4. This is 1L4. Great. And this is using a hidden line type on that box. And I'm going to copy and paste this information on the next page because it shows other details that are really worthwhile there too. So edit, copy with base point. Take that, take this. Good. Go to L4. So here I have these two details. They come off of this. Okay. One of them also comes off of that. So I'm going to make decisions here based on clutter to make sure I don't over clutter the drawing. So let me first of all paste this information that I have here. There it is. And I want to use the same information there and there. Notice here, this nicely shows up this detail. So that box and this information, I will now copy. And what I want to do is roughly make the box the same size as the view that I have. Okay, so the view that I have doesn't extend past this. Notice it wants to jump up and down because I'm just stretching it. So I'm going to use my F8 key, and I've noticed on my version I have to use function F8 for it to work. So if you aren't getting F8 properly, just use function F8, and it's just before all of the detail of the end cuts. So that box ends about there. Good. Now I'm going to move this one up, and it ends about here. Good. So where would be a good location for this reference? Well, I can point it out here and it doesn't interfere with the drawing. So I will copy this from here to somewhere, it doesn't matter right now. And then I will mirror that. Let's take a look at what happens to the 1F4. It stays. All right. Do I want to erase the source? Yes. Good. And this now, this brace detail is 3L4. So I'm going to change this to a 3. And I will extend that arrow to select the point nearest, right about there. That looks good. So this box, this reference, refers to this detail. Now notice I didn't include that on the previous drawing. There's just too much there. There's too much clutter. So I want to make sure that when I provide this information, it doesn't add to the clutter of the drawing. It's very clear. And you'll see as we go through the pages, the details become finer and finer. Okay, so I'm going to do this end cut right now. I will stretch this out to about there. Move this box in a bit here. We're trying to more or less match the information that I have. Visible. I have that visible in this viewport. That looks good. This, it's not pointing in the right direction again. And I can do the mirror and all that stuff. I'm just going to copy what I already have here. And pick that location and pick something somewhere here looks good. And notice that information is within the title block area. Great. It's pointing to the box very clearly. Great. And in here, this is 3L4. And this is, oh, look at this. By doing this, you pick out your errors. I can't have two drawings called the same thing. So you'll notice this is 1, 2, 3. Look at that one. That says 3 as well. So by doing this, you can also pick up your mistakes. And that's really important that you find all the reference errors as you work through this. I'm going to make this one 4. Great. So then this one up in here is also going to be 4. So all this work double checks everything that you're doing. It's a great way of being able to provide that. Now I could add more things to here like C detail for brace or C detail for end cut. It's not necessary. It's all on the same page. And notice how nice and clean this is. Okay, what about 1L4 and 2L4? These are different details of the same thing that's on L3. That's why I put here 1L4, and for this one, 2L4. So once again, let's try to clearly understand what referencing means. When you're looking at a major plan, for instance, L1, and this plan has pergola, we have to identify on this page where this detail is. And you can see here it says see detail 1A3. Well, I can leave it this way or create a rectangular box. Now, the problem with the rectangular box is that it's going to take up all of this drawing space. So this is another correct way of doing it, just by pointing to the edge of the hidden line that says the pergola above. I should have somewhere out here identifying that this notates the pergola above, and there's my note. Good. So if I go to 1L3, I should see this drawing in 1L3. So when I go to L3, there it is, but it's different. See, in here I have more detail. I expand on that view. I should have some information that relates between the two drawings so the viewer can actually identify that they're looking at the same thing. So in this particular case, what I should have is this information here. Where is it? Outline of pergola above. Okay. I could either use the annotation and put it in, or like I like to do, I like to copy and paste. So edit copy with base point. Notice I'm using copy with base point each time. And that allows me to switch between the different drawings. And I want to have that same information somewhere on here. Edit paste. Don't paste this block because then you can't edit it, but just paste. And I will place it here. And I will move this so it's in a better location. I'm going to remove my F8 this time, so it's not shifting in just horizontal vertical locations. I could place it there. I could place it here. It's going to be a short arrow, but it fits. Oops, it snapped to a location. That's all. So I will try it again. Move this to here, and this time I'm going to use Shift right mouse key and select none so it doesn't snap to anywhere. And now I've got to use my F8 to remove that horizontal vertical placement. And I'm going to put it right about here. And then I can take this. It once again wants to snap. See how it wants to snap to this corner or the endpoint of the line. So I'm going to use none, or nearest is a better one here because then I'll pick that line. Outline of pergola above. So it refers to the page L1 for location. So it has some similar notes. Or I can make a separate note to say to find pergola post locations on the drawing. But I've already got enough notes. They don't need to repeat that. They usually start in L1 and move in the opposite direction. So here it says C1L3, and then you move to L3. L3, the upper left-hand corner, is always the plan view that's on the L1 drawing. You don't create this in any other order. And that's really important that you realize that. Now, the other thing I can do, and in this case, I put in a key plan. That's not necessary in a lot of cases, but I put in a key plan so people can see what I'm referring to. This key plan is a minimalization of this drawing so people know where it refers to. It's also a reference to this drawing where all the beams are. So simply identifying all that information in one location so they can see that these posts are in that location. And that's something you can do on more complex positioning, and that's why I did it here. Not necessary in a lot of cases, but in this case it is. So once again, once you get to this point, look at all your references, make sure they make sense. Every drawing needs an independent number. We're on L3, so this is 1L3, 2L3, 3L3, 4L3. That's correct. Now I'm going to go to L4 and make sure I did the same here. 1L4, 2L4, 3L4, 4L4. Great. Now I'm going to go back and make sure that the references are correct. Sectional reference, this says I'm looking at it this way from 3L3. Okay, so 3L3 is this one. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm cutting through the lintel. That says lintel right there, and I've got a different color here just to give me that visual cue. And sure enough, look, there's my lint along cutting through it. So my reference is correct. What about this one? I'm cutting through this time the ceiling joist. And sure enough here, there's my ceiling joist. And once again, I'm using colors to help me identify with the parts and pieces. When I go to plot this for a builder, it's all going to be in black and white. There won't be any colors. So the colors I'm using to help me look at all the different scenarios that I have in this location to be able to make sure that all the references are correct. So for your project, you will have all of the different title bubbles, all of the detailed information, all of the detailed references, as well as the sectional references and how they relate to the drawing. Make sure that's all in place. Make sure you're following these rules and techniques to finish up your drawing, and then you can submit L3 and L4.